We are marking this year's World Refugee Day against a backdrop of a dramatic global crisis. Not only are record numbers of people forced to flee their homes, but the world is grappling with COVID-19, a disease that is still very much affecting us all. What started as a health crisis has expanded, and today many of the most vulnerable, refugees and the displaced amongst them, face a pandemic of poverty. Yet, throughout this challenging time, we have also seen a solidarity that transcends borders. Ordinary people have stepped up to help. Host community, especially those in low and middle-income countries where nearly 90% of the world's refugees live, have continued to demonstrate a remarkable welcome. And refugees themselves are also contributing in significant ways, despite often living in extremely vulnerable conditions. They are, for example, volunteering as frontline health workers, making soap for distribution, helping construct isolation centers. As we battle COVID-19, I draw inspiration from the resilience refugees have shown in overcoming their own crises of displacement and dispossession, their separation from home and family, and their determination to improve their own and others' lives. On World Refugee Day, I salute and celebrate the fortitude of refugees and displaced people around the world. I also pay tribute to the communities that shelter them and that have demonstrated the universally shared values and principles of compassion and humanity. They have sometimes hosted and protected refugees for years or even generations, and continue to uphold these values in a time of pandemic. This is a powerful message of hope and solidarity. UNHCR is no stranger to challenges. For over 70 years, we have been on the front lines of countless emergencies. Yet this global pandemic is of an entirely new magnitude. Our priority has been and will be to stay and deliver for the refugees, the internally displaced and stateless people we're mandated to protect. But we cannot do this alone. Whoever you are, no matter where you come from, every one of us can make a difference. Every action truly counts.
Hi, I'm Bill Bragan, Executive Artistic Director of the Arts Center at NYU Abu Dhabi, and I'm thrilled to welcome you to Reconnect, our online series of performances from the archives. Today's performance, Cartography, by Kaneza Shaw and Christopher Myers, was filmed in February of this year and is presented in honor of World Refugee Day in partnership with UNHCR. I want to especially thank our seasoned sponsors of the Art Center, Mubadala, ADCB, and Swipe, as well as all the members of the Art Center and all the staff who work here. Today, I also want to thank our partners in presenting Cartography. Along with UNHCR, I want to thank Cartography's producer, Archetype, Playhouse Square in Cleveland, Wesleyan University Center for the Arts, Young People's Theatre in Toronto, and Ubuntu Festival in Rwanda. I also want to acknowledge the amazing support for the development of Cartography by the New Victory Theatre in Times Square, New York City, and co-commissioners the Kennedy Center, where it made its world premiere. If you're joining us for the first time, let us know by hitting the wow emoji. If you're returning to the Art Center, hit the heart emoji, and either way, let us know where you're watching from tonight. Also, please like our Facebook page or subscribe to our YouTube channel so we can let you know about other upcoming shows, including a new virtual concert just added for next Friday, June 26th by Abu Dhabi Choral Group, Quarantania Mania. Cartography is a work of theater that drew on conversations the co-creators had with young asylum seekers about their experience. They asked questions like, what is a map? What did you bring with you when you left? Those conversations led them to looking at the roles of mobile phones in people's migration stories, which they wanted to include in the dramaturgy of the show. Exactly 2 years ago, their cartography company was in residence at the Arts Center, working with newly graduated students from NYU Abu Dhabi to develop some of the digital scenography you'll see tonight. We'll add a link in the chat to a mini documentary we filmed at the time, as well as a talk that Kaneza Shaw and Christopher Myers gave in February about artivism, creating art for social impact. After tonight's performance, we invite you to stay for a conversation with Kaneza and Chris and members of the company, Noor Hamdi and Malaika Umawaharo, moderated by the Arts Center's Director of Artistic Planning, Lindsey Bostwick. They'll be joined by Nadia Jabor, head of UNHCR's UAE office. With World Refugee Day being observed globally tomorrow, we're excited to work with them to present theater as part of their effort to bring a greater understanding of the plight of refugees and the displacement journey to wider audiences. The COVID-19 pandemic has shown us how vulnerable we are. It's shown us that sheltering at home can mean very different things to different people. UNHCR calls upon global solidarity with those who are forced to flee their homes and reminds the world that everyone can make a difference and every action counts. It is now my pleasure to introduce Cartography.
يلا تنام يذبح لك طير الحمام روح يا حمام لا تصدق نضحك عريمة لا تنام ريمة ريمة الحندقة شعرك أشقر ومنقى ويلي بيحبك بيبوسك واللي بعضك شو بيترقى
No llores, mi niña, no llores, mi amor, no llores, pedazo de mi corazón. No llores, mi niña, cabeza de ayote, si no te dormís, te come el coyote. No llores, mi niña, no llores, mi amor,
hari indirimbo mama wanje yandirimbiraga ngiye kuryama ubu sinibuka amagambo yayo si ngombwa n'ubundi sindi buryame
في تهليلة كانت تغني لي اياها امي قبل ما انام بس ماني متذكر كلماتها واصلا مو ضروري اتذكر لانه ما حنام.
Hay una canción de cuna que mi mamá cantaba. No me recuerdo las palabras, no las necesito, no voy a dormir.
That is a lullaby my mother used to sing. I cannot remember the words right now. I don't need them anyways. I won't be sleeping. Is this where the line starts?
Depends. What do you mean where it starts?
Like, where is the beginning of the line?
My line started a few months ago.
When mine started, I was in bed, asleep. The walls were shaking.
My parents sat us down and told us why it was a good time for us to go.
It was the first time I ever packed a bag.
They told me what I should say if anyone stopped me.
Plenty of people stopped me.
I hid money inside my shoe.
I had never been on a boat before,
Seen snow before.
Slept outside before.
missed breakfast before.
I had never missed home before.
My line started there too, I guess. Unknown, a little scared, but
You can tell where people come from by how they wait in a line. The less people have, the closer the line becomes. Until you meet the people who have nothing, who stand so close they begin to overlap.
But what? This is the place we're supposed to be now, right?
Inshallah,
Cindy,
Habibti,
go
this
on,
is the
I
place.
guess.
Did I miss anything?
The man with the suit came. He showed us where all the forms were.
More forms, always with the forms.
You see, a great society is made out of forms. I want to use the bathroom. Do you have the right piece of paper?
Funny guy.
So what did he say?
We have to use pen. If we need an interpreter, they can try and find one, but no guarantees.
Did he say what the forms were for?
He gave a little speech. Weird little speech. He'd practiced the speech.
Okay there, everyone. You're all gonna have to fill out these papers, basically.
Why is everything always basically with these people? Nothing has been basic since I left home.
Basically, these papers are gonna tell us where you've been, what you've been doing, what you want to do when you get here, who you're bringing with you, and all the information we're gonna need to do an informed decision about your case.
Then he takes a few steps towards the door, adjusts his pants, and he comes back.
Why do you have to tell us he adjusted his pants?
Because he did, like he was getting ready to do some heavy lifting. Then he says, it's like if you were inviting someone into your house. If you had a house, it'd be the same thing. You'd want to know what they were doing in your neighborhood, how long they expected to stay, whose house they were in before, and if they were cool when they were there. And you want them to pay $160 for the privilege of telling you this information. And you call it a filing fee. Just exactly what I did back home. Oh, bienvenida, stranger. Here's a Fanta and also some tear gas. Do you want to use the bathroom? Don't forget the forms.
Funny again. She's trying to hear what's needed. What did he say?
Some more things about translators and pens and his house and taking care of his house. And then he finished off with, we're happy to have you here. We just need to know a few things, a few details. All you have to do is tell us what brought you here.
Walking in a forest?
On a rocky shoreline.
The voices outside were speaking Spanish. Maybe some were French, but we couldn't see anything.
I have seen Macedonia on the map, and they say but I was asleep.
We waited in Alexandria for 3 months.
There are so many kittens on the island.
There are no signs on the water. I couldn't tell you.
A map is a thing to tell you where you are going.
Where you have been.
Where you are right now.
A map is a drawing on a piece of paper that tells you where safety is.
A map is a blue dot on a cell phone screen.
A map is a rumor you heard that there is a man who sits in the park wearing a red hat. He can get you papers.
Really?
A map is having a face that looks like the photo on the temporary passport you bought with all your money from the man with the red hat.
A map is having a face that doesn't arouse suspicion.
Or a smile that makes a policeman overlook you this time.
A map is knowing all the right answers to put in the form at the border.
A map is having a story that impresses people. I want to be a doctor.
A map is all the different papers you will need, you will get, you will fill in, tests.
Paper is the most important thing. I keep it in a plastic bag inside the pocket of my backpack, dry and safe even when I am not. Everywhere we stop, men in uniform ask me for paper, money folded into palms of hands, vaccination records. Yes, I went to high school. See, there is my father's name. Please, can you call this number for me? I know my passport has expired. So has my country. If I had a visa, that piece of paper would be stronger than all the others, and I would hold it in front of me like an umbrella. But better to keep it in a plastic bag, to keep it dry and safe.
A map is a plastic bag that keeps all the other maps.
I once had a map hand-drawn in ink that is now washed away. Just a blur of what I wanted.
A map is every time you can say to someone where you want to go.
I have an uncle who drives a taxi. He can get you anywhere you need. After all, he got himself to the city and became a taxi driver. And there was no map for that.
A map is when your face looks like the faces of the people you are talking to, even when your accent doesn't.
A map is a skill. Do you think Mo Farah would be British if he couldn't run so fast?
Weren't his parents born in British Somaliland?
Don't make it complicated.
The British made it complicated.
True.
Somebody told me football is a religion here. The players are their gods. But sometimes they are calling the football players monkeys. Balotelli was crying when they threw bananas. I cannot play as well as them. I am no god. I wonder what they will call me.
Is sadness a map?
When people say it's women or children, that always seems to open hearts.
Open hearts are a map, and rare.
I have a full deck of SIM cards. I plug each of them into my phone and talk to a different country. Each one is a gamble, a lottery ticket to a friendly voice.
I keep all my papers in my phone, pictures of passports and driver's licenses.
I have the Bible on my phone.
God could tell you where to go. God got me this far.
I grew up with holy books. Old men carried them to worship. Here, the only holy books are passports, and I don't know if I want the heaven inside those pages.
Maybe the only map I need is the Lord.
And an immigration officer who believes in the same Lord you do.
My dreams are my maps. Everywhere I want to go, I dreamed of first.
And so you dreamed of a grey immigration office and an endless line?
Y'all need better dreams.
I had a dream on the boat when we couldn't see land. There was just us and the thin blue line of the horizon pressing against the sky. And I imagined that the rest of the world had fallen away. And soon, all of Europe would come swimming towards our tiny boat, and they would try to push us out. And we would ask them each in turn for their papers to join us on the orange raft in the middle of the blue water.
I have been so many kinds of lost since I left.
Lost in customs.
Faces in forests on water.
I've been lost climbing trains and under tarps.
I've been lost in the holds of a cargo truck.
Lost in hunger, in drought.
In cities.
I have been more kinds of lost than I knew.
Every kind of loss needs a map.
I have been keeping a list of my debts. I owe 17 to the neighbor whose sneakers I borrowed. She won't be needing them, but still. I owe the man who told me that the water would carry me if I let it. I owe the breath in 16 people's lungs who took turns blowing into a raft in between whispers. I owe the gold and silver blankets they gave us when we reached the shores, when for a moment I was royalty. I owe every one of my uncles who scraped together stories to use at each and every border. I owe my mother for the food she prepared. It only lasted a day, but it will feed me for so much longer. I owe every stranger who smiled at me when I was wearing second-hand clothes. I thought for a moment you had recognized the shirt I was wearing as once yours, and that was almost as warm as home.
It isn't there anymore, I said. What isn't there anymore? She asked. Jess, I replied, knowing that whatever she could name, I would be right.
There are so many kinds of soap here. I cannot count the number of them. You have soap washing hands and soap washing faces. You have soap washing hair and soap washing bodies. You have soap washing plates and soap washing bowls. You have soap washing clothes and soap for washing floors. How many more things must you have to need this much soap for them? I imagine giving some of this soap to my grandmother. She wouldn't know what to do, but she would do it cleanly.
My grandmother was a map.
And a clock.
If it was 4 p.m., she was watching her stories.
She was in our living room, in our village, in our country.
Watching her stories in an old pink robe that was as soft as inside a goat's ear.
So we knew when and where we were back then, when the television broadcast such things.
In this time of great struggle for all of us, with the challenges and terror, it is time for us to come together to show those who would stand against us that together no one can stand against us. The freedom people, the people who understand community and togetherness and love. We will not be ruled by fear. We will not be told who we can be. We will not break into pieces. We will stand together.
Sí, podemos!
Not you.
Quiero vivir en una telenovela, como las que vemos en
vivo,
Líbano y
Brito.
Brasil.
I don't want to live. It is so rough. Like the kind of video
بيكون عندي شعر طويل بيني يرجع من الموت بالسكتين كاشف بيكون عندي حبيبات بفوضى موسيقى تلعب وراي بروح هنيك بدي اعيش بنص شقة بس ابدا روح حوالي وكمان بيكون عندي شغل بس ما اروح عليه وبدي اكل ضوء الشمع بدي اجيب مترجمين بفوق صوتي بس بالانجليزي ما في حدا بيحب الانجليزي
and I want to hire translators to speak in English over my regular voice because everyone hates subtitles.
It is strange, the things we hold on to.
Like the memories of television shows.
Or old pink robes.
The things we use to remember when or where or how. A date is brown and sweet. It tastes like grandmothers and breaking fast in Ramadan. It tastes like uncles making fun of you because that is how they show love underneath their mustaches. It tastes like little siblings and sneaking out with your friends. A date is brown and sweet. And even here, in this concrete place, with its rules and street lights and small talks, perhaps especially here, a date smells like home.
Why I keep these keys? I cannot tell you. The doors they belong to are long gone.
Before we left, my best friend gave me some money.
We all took money with us. Liras, dollars, dirhams, something.
But what my best friend gave me wasn't worth anything.
Then why?
He said he wanted me to owe him something, so I would be sure to see him again.
Hey, look at you, Justin Bieber.
I only got a haircut.
An American haircut.
A haircut can't be American or anything else, really.
That is just what an American would say.
Besides, isn't Justin Bieber Canadian?
Ah, Canadian, American. I forget, you Americans are so sensitive about these things, eh?
Dancing is the first language you lose when you come here. Then you forget how to be polite. Then you forget how to speak to your elders. Then you forget that you will find another job. Then you forget your degree, the one you never use except to surprise the occasional patron in the restaurant where you work. Then you forget taste, and nothing can be too spicy. But if you can find a place to dance with people who love you, you will remember all these languages and learn more.
One day we will be old, I hope, and make our own maps.
And give them to some young and sweet and desperate people.
And help them build their homes on our fading memories.
And they'll draw their maps over ours.
And it will be beautiful.
The first time I was crossing a wilderness, staying as close to the dark as I could, I was with others, the kind of family you make when you are running. And there was only a little moon in the sky, enough to see our breaths like steam from a kettle. And there were stars, bright spots against the blue-black skies, so many stars that as we climbed the hill, they began to fall and stick to our clothes and eyelashes. I had never seen the stars fall before. They are cold and will melt on your tongue.
There are astronauts, Jess.
Yes,
Do they have maps?
I don't know.
Or do they make it up as they go along?
The blankets that they give you when you land on the beaches, the gold and silver ones, they were developed by NASA, you know, for space travel, to keep the light and the heat in when the astronauts are floating in the endless night sky. The space shuttles, the landing pods, are really very small. All the crew fits together tight as a jigsaw puzzle. They must cling to the spacecraft, a little bubble of atmosphere, of heat, of sound. You know that if they were to leave the little pocket of air, if they were to slip over to the side into the night, they wouldn't even be able to scream. After our nights on the raft, in the endless ocean, I think that NASA was happy to give us their blankets, because maybe they know better than others do.
It says here to write information about my parents and then a summary of why I am seeking asylum.
How many pages do they want?
Not pages. The blue box is maybe this big.
And they want a story in that space?
100,000 years ago, there were these two clans, and there were these two brothers, and they got into a fight.
People say that where there is a desert now used to be a place where you could farm, and so all the people who used to be farmers, they moved into the cities.
My mother was a writer, and she wrote for the newspaper, and everyone would read her writing. Until one day, when she wrote the wrong thing, which wasn't a wrong thing. She just said some things that were right about the wrong guy.
There's this guy, and he's giving out roses. And he's in a house with maybe 20 ladies. But you see, he's only got 19 roses. And so each week, he gets one less rose than there are ladies. And in the end, one of the ladies, the last lady to get a rose, she gets to marry him.
And that's it?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot more stuff that happens, like intrigue and stuff. And, oh, the ladies are interesting. One of them is real ambitious. She's got like 15 college degrees and was in the Olympics.
Olympics?
But for one of those sports that isn't really a sport, like trampoline or something.
And that's the one he marries?
No, that's part of the intrigue and the behind-the-back talking.
Which one does he marry?
Probably the blonde one, the one who's always laughing at his jokes.
Isn't it always that way?
Do you know a tomato costs $5 back home? $5 for one raggedy tomato. There's this thing called an embargo because there are government people doing government type things. And although I have nothing to do with this, it basically means a tomato is $5.
I feel for you.
No, really. Think about it. If a tomato costs $5, what does a school book cost? A house? We were poor to begin with. I don't even know what the word is for what we are now.
I've been hungry my whole life.
So, they want a story about how we got to this point?
But if we don't know anything about this kid...
If I want to start it in the middle, I can. This kid washes up on the shores of this island, and no one knows anything about him. He's maybe forgotten a little some of the things about himself.
Does he have ID?
This is before they had IDs and stuff, when people just asked who you were, and that was that.
So you just walked up to people and introduced yourself, and everyone was okay with that?
Don't get stuck on the details.
I'm just saying, I can't just walk into almost anywhere and say, hey, my name is Jane Doe. I'm just going to have a seat right here and read my book.
Have you tried it? Okay, I guess you have. Either way, this kid wakes up in a pile of leaves on the shore.
A pile of leaves.
Do you want to hear the story or not?
I guess so, and I guess I've fallen asleep in worse. I ever tell you about the car that didn't have an engine?
Number one, yes. And number two, I'm telling a story.
Right, pile of leaves.
So, as this kid is trying to find home, all this stuff is happening. Like, each place he goes to, crazy things happen.
Like what?
Like everything! All the things!
Like he's in the woods and runs into some drug addicts who take his shoes.
Like, he finds himself working as a cleaner in this weird club in Macedonia, and he's not allowed to dance or even listen to the music, even though he could probably dance all those people into the floor.
Like someone is supposed to help him find home, but in fact it's a trap.
Like he fell off the side of a boat and he finds this life vest that's just there, like the water just gave it to him.
Yes, stuff like that. You sure you want me to keep telling this story?
This story is crazy. Please.
Okay. One time, he and his friends run into this policeman who had one eye.
A city police or a state police?
I don't know, policeman of some sort.
What did he do when they asked for ID?
He said his name was Nobody.
And what did the policeman say?
But you got to remember, this is before IDs and papers, so the cop asks his friends for help. He says, hey, I met Nobody on the street. You guys heard anything? And they say, heard anything about who? And he says, Nobody. And then they look at him like he was crazy and say, no, we didn't hear anything about nobody. All that if you meet somebody, or even anyone.
And he had no ID.
Did he ever get back home?
He did.
But what?
Well, he got home, but people didn't recognize him. Didn't know who he was.
But then he said, right?
Not right away. Besides that, things were complicated.
Complicated how?
Like, well, things had gone to ruin while he was gone. All new people moved in. Lots of rough dudes fighting. It was a different world than the one he'd left.
Isn't it always that way?
This kid, the one who woke up in a pile of leaves, who didn't know who he was, he had a son.
But you said he was a kid himself.
I meant kid like this kid over here.
Not kid like baby, kid like person.
So you said he had a son, but he hadn't been home in years?
So, the kid, the son kid, not the dude kid, doesn't know his dad. Never really did.
Oh, I know about that. Like your dad is a ghost and everyone is talking about him, but you don't know him.
Exactly.
So when he comes home, you're like, hey, this is my dad, everyone. But behind your back, people are putting dad in quotes.
Right. And they're talking all kinds of stuff about what his dad was doing all those years when he was away.
That's gotta be hard.
What's worse than that? Well, everyone is walking around talking about how bad of a father this guy was. He was still thinking of his friends.
Friends? Which friends? You said he washed up on a pile of leaves. There weren't any friends.
Okay, by the time he walked over the shore and washed up with a pile of leaves, there weren't any friends, but there were plenty of friends before that. Remember, I started the story in the middle?
So what happened to the friends?
Oh, they had it rough. Some got addicted to drugs, and some got hurt or imprisoned. A bunch drowned when they ran into a storm on the Mediterranean.
Damn, so dude who washed up on the pile of leaves was the lucky one.
Yeah, I guess. It's funny how what lucky is changes depending on the rest of what's happened. In the end, after he got home and reunited with his family, he looked back on all those years that he was lost and the friends that he'd lost.
Oh, I know about that too.
What do you mean? You washed up on a pile of leaves?
No, I mean, if you check my Facebook, I have a lot of friends that aren't here anymore.
I have a few of those. I send them messages on Messenger sometimes. If they ever responded, can you imagine?
Okay, okay, I wasn't going to tell you this part, but this guy, sometime during when he was lost, he found an abandoned internet cafe.
Oh, is this going to get scary?
Maybe. He found an abandoned internet cafe, and he messaged all his friends who'd passed away to see if they knew anything about how to get home.
Why didn't he just message his live friends?
I don't know. It's just not how the story goes.
I hope when I die, someone erases my Facebook page.
What about Instagram and WhatsApp?
Keep those open, because if I send a picture from wherever I go when I die, it'll be amazing.
Don't send me any pictures from there, eh? I don't want any WhatsApps from the great beyond.
How long did this kid wander about until he made a home happen?
It was about 10 years.
Willie?
Oh, Dios. So he really wasn't a kid anymore.
I don't know that he was a kid when he started, but yes, it was a long time.
Did he ever think to himself, you know what? Here I am on this island, and It's not home, but it's all right here.
And the sun is shining and there are mangoes or whatever, and might as well stay.
Of course he did. We all do that sometimes. But you know home when you get there.
And if you're not there, you're always trying to get back.
True.
You know what they need in these waiting rooms? A comment box.
What?
That's stupid.
Like how? Explain it to me.
I've been to maybe 7 borders now, and they're all different. And maybe if you could leave a little comment, they could make some improvements.
To the man who pretended to be a border agent in plain clothes and asked for a bribe, that was not a very nice thing to do.
To the guy selling maps in the forest when there wasn't enough cell phone service to find our way, thank you. But could you have the maps printed in our language?
To every national doctor who gave me a physical. Please warm up your hands and the thing you use to listen to our hearts before you do anything else.
Just like that.
Diseases?
War.
That doesn't count.
People are very poor.
Not that.
They're also hungry.
Also not that.
What do these people count as a disease?
Yeah, it wouldn't all be complaints. Maybe there'd be a few thank yous. I know I have some thank yous. Like thank you to every conversation with every fellow traveler who told me what was next. Or just cheered me up a bit.
You know they're just going to get everyone who wrote on the comment cards and put them on the first plane back home. Nobody likes complainers.
I don't think the Swedish turn people away for making a comment or for complaining a little. Yeah, I went there, and when they had me in the waiting room, I asked them to turn up the heat, and they did.
Ah. So why are you still not there? Huh? In Sweden.
Oh,
What's a family member?
really?
I mean, what counts as a family member?
If you put Kat down as family member, they're definitely not going to let you in.
I don't know. They really like their pets here. They let them sleep in the same bed with them and everything.
I have a cousin who's like a brother to me. Not like a brother, is a brother. His parents died, and we were raised side by side, sharing clothes and food and a mother. So, do I write him as my brother?
Don't they have ways to check those things? And if they find out?
He probably needs asylum more than I do.
Look, if you do say it, and then they don't take you, what good are you doing him then?
There should be a space on the form for cousin who is like a brother.
If they want to get to know us, they're going to need a lot more spaces on those forms. Hi. Hello. Nice sweater. Hi. My name is Malaika. If you ask my uncles and aunts where we come from, they will tell you that years and years ago, we came from Egypt, that we had cattle, and that we were nomads. Because in every story of our past, we have cattle. My people have cattle dances even. We stretch our arms as wide as the horns, and no one can imagine a past in which they are poor. If you ask my mother, she will tell you that the airlines provided good work, that she could see the world, and that she wore uniforms the color of the ocean. If you ask her, she will tell you that she imagined what it would be like if she had finished school. If she might have been one of the cranky business people asking for, "Hey, mach peanuts!" on the Air France flight. She will tell you that every time she flew and that every child she took care of on those long trips with the extra desserts and blankets made her think a little of me waiting for her at home, wondering if any of the planes passing overhead held her. That every time she pinned those souvenir wings onto those airplane children, she thought about the wings she wanted to give me, so that I could fly wherever I wanted, and so that I knew that I was supposed to be on planes and go places. If you ask my mother's father, he will look at you sternly. You see, he had escaped many times worlds that fell apart, and so built for himself this kind of safety, this kind of order. He was an army to himself in those days. When he spoke, people listened. It was the truth. And when he told my mother that he would kill her if she were ever pregnant out of wedlock, oh, he meant it. She ran away in the 11th grade with me inside her. But if you ask him now, he will tell you how she escaped another world falling apart. This genocide, like he did. But this time, in a truck with a red cross on its side. If you ask me, I will tell you that it is because I can act, because I listen, because I can move people, and build on all the ones who we have asked before, who pinned golden wings to me, who built worlds that wouldn't fall apart so easily. If you ask me, I will tell you that it is because when I act, I share the script with my mother, And she reads it and asks, "Hey, Malaika, why do you have to kiss this or that person on screen, eh?" I share it, this acting, with all those who we have asked before, and try just a little bit to use the wings that they have given me.
Van Wert, Ohio, is a small place with a small imagination. And there are, as everywhere, some lovely people, but it's small. And it didn't imagine me or my family, but we were there. So I ran away. I used to run away a lot to places where I could imagine myself. To Hyrule, to save Princess Zelda. You may know her. To the various gyms where I tried to catch them all. I ran into comic books and books and years worth of video games to press play on my imagination and see how far I could go. I invented worlds where I didn't have my own. And every summer we went to Damascus, and I invented that world too, where I could speak the language of my family, that to this day I speak when I'm on the phone with my mother, and random people in places like Van Wert look at me and wonder what kind of plot I am planning when I'm just talking about Thanksgiving, or my nieces and nephews. But even there, in Damascus, which we call Sham, there are times where I felt not imagined. And maybe none of these worlds could imagine me perfectly, so I continued running away, inventing new worlds for myself. And I realized I come from a long line of inventors like this. My grandfather came from Egypt to Syria and invented for himself a family. And my father came from meager means and invented himself as a surgeon, just the kind of surgeon they needed in a small town in northwest Ohio. And my sister Lana, Allah yarhamha, she invented herself as a radio personality in Atlanta with lots of makeup and Instagram followers, and I don't think that my grandparents or my parents could have imagined her, or me. But they only have themselves to blame, starting us on this road of invention. But all of this invention, this imagination, it takes work and sacrifice. It takes a toll to invent yourself anew each morning. It's taken tolls on them. And sometimes people will imagine what your life should be, or what they wish it was, or who you should love, and maybe they're just filling in the gaps, the things they wish they had invented for themselves. But you keep on inventing worlds for yourself. You invent New York and acting classes. You invent marching in parades and finding love, and you invent talking on this stage right now about generations of people who invented themselves and paid prices for that invention, and Egypt and Sham. And maybe one day you will invent an acting school in Syria. And my niece, Dalia, who I can tell is an actor, an inventor, she will get with other young people and they will tell stories like this one of generations of people who imagined themselves into being. Just like a video game I started playing years ago in Van Wert, Ohio, and haven't yet stopped, just to see how far I could go.
My father built a fence around our house from things he'd found at his various jobs. It floated a few feet in the air like it was protecting our small home from any bad thing that was 2 feet tall to 6 feet tall. Each morning, my sister and I would tear that fence down, and then he would build it up again by the time we got home from school, and then we would tear it down again. I wondered what he thought he was protecting with this fence. We didn't have much. A father who was good looking and looking for work, a mother who cleaned houses and still does, us 3 kids. But it certainly got us in the habit of seeing where fences were and tearing them down. My sister, Idalia, me, Janice, Isolina, and my baby brother with the curly hair, Dylan. It's like our names were this migration in themselves, right? Idalia, El Salvador, Janice, Isolina, somewhere in between, and Dylan, which should maybe belong to a blonde surfer dude from California. But our family was built over fences. My mother and father and Theo drove to the United States in a red truck, over 2,000 miles. And when they got to the border and applied for asylee status because of all the violence back home, they were told they had to leave that red truck behind. They did. They weren't going to let the love of a red truck, or the memories of that time together, or the paperwork to apply for residency, or anything else get in the way of them crossing to where they needed to be. Not that there weren't fences after that. There are all kinds of fences. I remember once I was with my dad, and he said something to a white woman. Perhaps something had fallen from her pocket or some other small kindness, and she ignored him. And my dad said to me, "White people pretend they don't hear when I talk." And that was a kind of fence. And money, or rather when you don't have money, is a kind of fence. But at each fence, my siblings and I will somehow find a way through or around. My sister, she's a humanitarian. She'll travel the world helping people who've been affected by awful things. There was this natural disaster in Sierra Leone. The earth swallowed people and houses, and my big sister was there. And my mom and I even went to visit because when you're dealing with such things, you might want nothing more than people who know what fences are to help you build things, tear some things down. Once I was in Tabasco, Mexico, helping some of the more recent arrivals, people whose experiences with fences is much more recent than my own. And the strangest thing was that the other people who were there to help couldn't tell what side of the fence I belong on. To tell you the truth, sometimes I don't know what side of the fence I belong on. My mom, she's sweet. She watches her kids just travel the world, and I know she wishes that we were closer to her, closer to the fences, even the invisible ones. You know, we've never met the children of the families she works for. Even after all of these years, and Ivy League colleges, and hand-me-down clothes from them, some fences are very strong. But my mom doesn't stress about us being far away. No. She and our dad made sure that we were good at tearing down fences. As she says, "No les puedo cortar las alitas." I would never want to cut your wings. And accents, and sexuality, and money, and death, and alcohol, and politics, and all of these things, they're all fences. But we can tear them down, and we won't let them stop us because our parents gave us these wings so we can use them.
If you ask my grandmother where we come from, she will tell you that Jesus himself walked amongst these cedar trees on these hills, and before that, Ishtar. And she will tell you stories on stories on stories, and you feel like you know everything. And only after some time will you realize that she hadn't said anything about herself. If you ask my grandfather, he will tell you how they asked him to leave his home, and that it would only be a few hours. And that was in 1947. And the hours haven't finished yet. And in the meantime, he built a whole other life. He became a pediatric surgeon and helped a lot of little kids. And sometimes when he helped a child whose family couldn't afford it, he would accept a goat as payment. And my grandmother would ask, "What are we going to do with a goat?" If you ask my mother, she will tell you about those goats. She will tell you about the smell of jasmine and stray cats everywhere, about tight-knit communities, and pulling bread up in a basket from the street from the local baker who delivered on a bicycle. And she will tell you about the ocean, how much she loved the ocean. And she will tell you in that way that memories grow more beautiful the further you are away from them. If you ask my aunt, who was too young when she left to remember anything before the war with such fondness, she won't tell you much of anything. There is one story about a grenade cut through the living room, And another about bullets whizzing past her head when she snuck out of the house to play basketball. And maybe her fondness was swallowed, as war so often does. The fighting swallows things. Buildings, roads, uncles, friends, memories. And she will ask you, why are you still living in memories? We have to move on. If you ask me, I am building my memories piece by piece. Cedar trees, Jesus, and Ishtar. Houses left for a few hours many years ago. Goats for payment. Jasmine, stray cats, and fighting that swallowed family members and memories. If you ask me, I am learning to remember every day. I'm learning our language again. I'm struggling to wrap my tongue around the words I want to say to tell my Teta Kozi that I love her a lot and بحبك كتير in the language that she hears love in the best. And she would smile.
We all have maps. The places that we've come from, where our families have come from, where we are now. This is all just one point on a continuum that started far away and brought us all here, together for this moment in this theater today, where the long journeys meet, where all of our maps come together. We have shared our maps with you. We are hoping that you will share your maps with us. The long journeys that led to this moment together now. For instance, Malaika, will you talk us through your map?
My grandfather came from Oman, then moved to Rwanda. But because of the genocide against the Tutsi in 1959, we had to move to Uganda. From there, I moved to Egypt, and lived there for 2 years, then went to the USA, and then today I am here with you in the UAE. There we go, and UAE.
Can everyone take out their phones? Thank you. Yeah, no, for real, you can take them out. Great, take them out and you can hold them up. If for some reason you don't have a phone, that's okay. We will come back to you. Okay, so now you'll want to put your phone on airplane mode. Make sure you're in airplane mode, then sign into the Wi-Fi network called Cartography. Okay, it might take a minute to connect. Make sure you're in airplane mode, then signed into the Wi-Fi network Cartography. And when you're there, can you let me know by holding up your phone? Great. Okay. So while more people are connecting, I'm going to tell you what we're going to do next. You're going to trace the journeys that brought you into this room today. So this might be your own personal story of migration. It might include your parents or your grandparents or maybe their parents' parents. And some of us, we don't know where our families came from, right? So until we can figure out where to put Wakanda on the map, you get to take your best guess. Okay, for people still catching up, you're in airplane mode, signed into the Wi-Fi network Cartography. Now go to your web browser and type in map.com, map.com, map.com. Nor is there. It'll look like this. There's a big world map and a yellow block. Great. Good. Okay, cool. So you'll scroll through that map, a simple, just like pinch, zooms in and out, and a double tap. Double tap selects the country. A single tap will reveal the name if you're having a hard time finding one. So double tap to select the countries on your journey. They'll appear on a list, and once you have that list of all the countries that brought you here today, go ahead and click submit. Great. Cool. Very cool, wow. This is amazing. So this, what we're seeing is the movement. This is the migration of this room to being here today. Is anyone having any trouble? Anyone need any help? You can raise your hand. Or if you don't have a phone, maybe if someone near you has already submitted their journey, they can submit your journey for you.
Excuse me, sir. Thank you.
Great. Victoria's out there, Malaika, Noor, I'm coming out to help as well.
Okay, perfect. Cartography. Then go to your web browser.
Is it? Yeah.
Safari. Go to Safari, yes. And then map.com.
You're on the Wi-Fi network Cartography. You're in airplane mode. Great. Did you go to your browser?
So it's a double tap to select.
Great. Oh, why is it in Google?
Yeah.
Can you open a new web page? Do you know how to do that? Here, I'm going to let you map it on my phone. You're going to double click the countries that you've come from.
babyibusa n'ababyibuka nabo bazibutsa abandi bigere ku isi yose ntizunguruka uko.
Did they call next?
They did, but I think you already heard that one. What happens after this?
More questions.
All of these questions, all of these borders, every time, they never ask anything real.
Your name?
Do you know how many names I've had? I was 5 years old before I knew that my real name wasn't Satellite. They said that when I was born, it looked like I could capture TV channels from far away.
Forget how many names you've had. What about how many people have my name? If you shout, Muhammad, at the gate of my village, everybody would turn around. Old men and cats and goats and babies. There is one Ahmad, but he married into the village, and everybody in his village, Ahmad.
They always ask if you intend to do something bad. Like you walk up to the border and there's this man in uniform and he says, "Hey, do you intend to steal candy from babies?" Not that I think that there's any of us trying to steal baby candy, but
Who is going to say, yes, I want to steal baby candy? You have caught me. I have heard that in your country, your babies are the most easy to take candy from, so...
Yes, I have a family and a house and people who love me and grandparents and memories and generations of love, but I could not resist the allure of your vulnerable baby.
The allure of a job that maybe I can have.
the allure of being a stranger to everything and everyone.
The allure of winters. Yes, it is warm and wonderful where I'm from. Just you people vacation there, but I thought there must be something to this, how do you say, a slush?
Oh. Snow, rain, heating bills, the dream.
We could teach you the questions to ask.
What did you call the place you now call home before you had to leave it?
How long will it take before you can call this place home?
Ever.
One day, you might have a kid, and that kid will sometime mess up in school.
One day you might have a kid that messes up in school.
Okay, one of us is going to have a kid that messes up in school. Will you threaten to send them home?
Will you remember home as better than ever it could have been? Will you give that missing as a gift to your children?
My Baba used to say that hunger is the best sauce. Do you know what that means?
Sort of, like when you're hungry, food tastes better.
Will you love this new country like you were hungry for a place to live?
Hungry for a place to live.
Here's a question. You told your friends you would come back home after you made a certain amount of money. How much?
Will home still be there when you make that money?
There is really only one question. How did your world get broken?
When did it happen?
Was it all at once, like falling down a flight of stairs?
Or did it happen in slow motion?
Did the breaking creep over you like grass? Or did you look down and your entire world was cracks, fractures, bits and pieces under your feet?
I cannot tell you where it started. Perhaps it was in an office in one of these square buildings.
If I were the one asking the questions.
What is the name of the dictator you are running from?
Poverty? Lack of opportunity?
Why do you like your villains to wear gaudy uniforms?
It is so much harder to spot a bad guy when he growls like an empty belly.
Cracks the ground with invisible feet.
Makes deals overseas.
When the desperate circumstance stretches over an ocean or time.
Where I am from, hunger hangs around our necks like jewelry.
I close my eyes and I can still smell the whisper of bullets.
In my dreams, I pose for photos in the rubble of places that used to be.
If I were the one asking the questions, I would ask myself to make a list of all the things that we bring with us that can't be seen.
We carry with us so many things.
Some nightmares and fears.
Some songs.
A talent for dreaming that has taken us this far.
A sense of humor and more stories than anyone has the right to tell.
We have with us all the tools it takes to build a world.
And all the reason to build it better than the ones we've come from.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for tuning in for this amazing screening of Cartography. My name is Lindsey Bostwick. I'm the Director of Artistic Planning here at the Art Center at New York University, and I'm so thrilled to see once again these incredible creators of the piece, and also joined by some of the performers and Nadia Boujour from the UNHCR office here in the UAE. So if you have questions, if you haven't put them in the Facebook feed or YouTube, please do so now. We're going to try and get to as many questions as possible. And I know for me, before we start on the questions, I just want to say a huge thank you. I met Christopher Myers and Kaneza Shawl, I think almost 4 years ago when I first heard about the piece, when it was just a kernel of an idea, and just fell in love with the piece, the idea, and seeing how far it's come and seeing where the world is now. It's really incredible to watch it again and to see it through this lens and through this map. So I'd like to start the questions with Nadia and really asking her, why did you want to commemorate World Refugee Day through art, and why this piece specifically?
Thank you, Lindsay. Before I answer your question, I would really like to thank and congratulate the amazing team for this wonderful product, the producers and the performers. It's amazing. This is the second time I see it, and it touches the heart. Exploring the journey of 4 young displaced persons and using the powerful voice of youth in their outreach. It's amazing. So congratulations. And I would like also to say a few words that I'm very pleased this year that we're marking the World Refugee Day in close partnership with New York, the Art Center in New York University, Abu Dhabi. You guys are leading one of the leading platforms in the region for creativity and performance with the humanitarian, social, cultural outreach. And we're very happy to have joined our forces today to mark the World Refugee Day. Coming to your question on arts, why arts? I would like to say it's complicated, but for me, it's as simple as it is. We strongly believe in arts in all its shapes, music, painting, dance, theater, because we feel that art is a universal language and brings us all together to share one language of inclusion, solidarity, kindness, compassion. And art such as the cartography is a vital instrument and a powerful tool to bring voices of refugees. And it sheds more light to have a greater understanding of displacement. In my 26 years in this field of work, in different continents I have worked, there has not been a moment where art has not brought us all together, the host community, the displaced, us as workers, and it basically gives us the hope, and it passes the message of the challenges that displaced people go through. So why this? When I saw it, Lindsey, the first time, I could not just click. I had to finish it all. I wanted to see the end of it. And it's amazing that these young people are so different in their journey, in their diversity, in where they come from, but they all come with one common, which is the displacement they have gone through, the challenges that they have gone through, and more importantly, the resilience, the courage, and the determination. The last few words they all mentioned, we all have the tools that it takes to build the world. And this is something that we would want to mark today's the World Refugee Day.
Thank you so much, Nadia. I'd like to turn it to Christopher Myers and Kaneza Shawl, who created the piece, really, and talk a little bit about how this was a calling for you and the work that you did with the young people.
Lisa?
Sure. So, you know, when there's a big crisis in the world, we call doctors and we call lawyers and we call social workers. And in 2016, Christopher and I traveled to Munich, Germany to work with young people, a little older than this one who you might hear, who had come to Munich alone, seeking refuge. And they had come from around the world. They had come from Syria and Afghanistan, and they had come from Mali and Iraq and Somalia and Eritrea and Nigeria. And we wanted to think about what tools we have as artists to address this moment where more people are moving in human history than ever before. And so we wanted to make a platform where we could think about this moment with young audiences who are at the forefront of considering migration in our contemporary times.
But, you know, in contemporary moment, this moment, there are a lot of big words that are thrown around. And when I say big words, I mean words like freedom or dignity, these huge concepts. And when you work with young people and when you work with anyone, we realized that you need something to hold those big words. Big words like that almost end up being meaningless without story behind them, without those kind of details of humanity and of truth and of the things that you would share around a campfire or with a friend. That is how we give meaning to those big words. You know, in the United States today, it's Juneteenth. It's an important day for, you know, when some of the last of my people were freed, of African Americans were freed. And you use these big words and you say freedom. What does that mean? It's something that we can chant at a protest. That's nice. But also when you say it means that I can hold my child, it means that I can love who I want to love, all these things, that brings a specificity to it. And it brings a realness to it that we wanted to give to this question of what it means to be a refugee. I mean, this is a context in which these big, important words are said, especially to young people. We wanted to say, what does that mean on an everyday basis?
Exactly. And I think as we are watching it now, we have such a different interpretation of what it meant even 3 or 4 months ago to what it meant when you first worked 4 years ago in 2016. And I wanted to talk a little bit to two of the performers here, Noor Hamdi and Malika Umahuro, to ask you guys, you talk a little bit about a map in the piece. And I want to know where you're at now. Where is your map?
Noor?
You can go first, Malika.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for letting me be here with you all. I am currently in Portland, Maine, and but my heart really is in Kigali, Rwanda, with my family. I currently can't see them because of everything that's happening, and just being here as an African and experiencing everything that is happening right now in the world. Yeah, my map is kind of displaced, distorted in a way, but yeah, just trying to be present.
Um, and it's interesting because I feel like all of us have our own maps, and we often talk about how like it's like a heroic journey that everyone's history has, like in their families, and how everyone ends up where they're at the current moment. So for me, I'm in New York, and I've been here trapped in New York for like the past, how long has it been? Like 3 months. My family's in Chicago, and we're from Damascus, Syria. And we've all been kind of just stuck in the same place, and it's because of everything that's going on, it's kind of weird how the movement of people on Earth right now is at such a standstill, including those of us, like who would usually be moving around because our families and our histories and our friends are all over the place. So yeah, my map is currently here, and it's currently, my little like red pin has not moved like out of my 1 block radius of my apartment for like the past 3 months, and it's odd. It's really odd.
One of the things that we have learned in this time period that we were trying to bring to life in the theater piece is the idea that movement is very human. This is, the fact that we move from one place to another, that we bring our histories and our stories, that is something that intersects with all of our histories. Whenever you get into any room and we do this map exercise at the end of the piece, you realize that everyone has been traveling for generations and generations and generations, and everyone has a great-grandfather that's from, or a cousin who married into. And this idea of seeing ourselves as part of a great continuum of movement is a big part of what we wanted to bring to this project, because oftentimes we stigmatize people who are more recent refugees or people who move very recently, but we all have in some part of our history some movement, some great travel, some intrepid great-grandmother who decided, let me go and make a life somewhere. And we wanted to call up those great-grandmothers as well as some of the young people who are moving today.
Exactly. And I think one of the things that I was thinking about while watching it again is just, especially during this pandemic, is the idea of the privilege of having a home, staying at home, and wondering if anyone had thought about that a little bit more when you watched this piece tonight.
There's something that in this moment where many of us have the luxury of a roof over our head and a meal to eat and a place to return to call home. And some of us for the first time are experiencing home as a hyper-local place where we're not leaving, where we are living our entire lives in our living rooms or our bedrooms, and we wonder, do we know all of our neighbors' phone numbers just in case something happens? Or does the corner store still have toilet paper? And then at the same time, for many people, I would say in the United States in particular, people are imagining the rest of the world and their closeness to the rest of the world in a new way, in a way that catches up to how many of the people in the world think about the world all the time. So there's this hyper-local, this extremely local, and this extremely global thought all colliding. And in many ways, the theater has always been a place for this, where we gather an intimate, immediate community to think about big questions about the world. And so it's been exciting to have this performance as a place to return to where we have the very, very local and the very, very global being held simultaneously.
Yes, thank you for that. And Nadia, you had something that you also wanted to share?
Yeah, it's just to add to what Christopher also mentioned. I mean, it's a reality that in relation to freedom and freedom of movement. And I was just reflecting on what you said, and I was just thinking, like 2 decades ago, the number of refugees and IDPs, internally displaced persons, seemed to be in decline. And sadly, with the release of our Global Trends report yesterday, the global displacement has almost doubled since 2010. 2010, we were 41 million. Today, we're 80 million. And people don't have a choice. The pandemic has shown us how we are all humans and how we are all vulnerable. And I do echo what you have said, Kaneza, that yes, I mean, we take things for granted. We have the roof, at one point, everybody was panicking. How do you provide the toilet papers? How do you provide food? Are you going to go to the supermarket? And it reminds me with stories that I have lived during my work with refugees. And I live in today's context, even here. How many of them don't have this privilege? Many have been deprived from the displacement. Many have gone through a lot of very difficult stories of displacement, losing their dear ones, having no maps with them, having no documentation, going through horror to be able to reach haven. And now the horror is double for them, because COVID has shown all of us that we have been affected. Many have lost their jobs. Many don't have even the luxury of having soaps in their hands, water. There are things which we take as human beings for granted, and yet they're part of the vulnerable people, among them the displaced, who don't have those that we're talking about. So I would really urge us to think and go back to what we have been discussing, the humanity, and go back to the basics. We all need to have a global solidarity. It's the times where we really show that we need each other.
Thank you. And this piece really highlights that, and I think opens up that space that we can all stop and think. We have so many questions that have flooded in, and I want to try and get to them in the last few minutes that we have here. And I think this is a beautiful time to kind of talk about, a lot of people were wondering, why did you want to have the stories of the 4 performers in the piece? And so I'm wondering, maybe Christopher, you could touch on that, and also maybe some of the performers as well, having that space to really talk about what was personal to you.
I think Kaneza should,
okay,
because as the director, she figured that out. That was a hard problem.
There's a challenge when telling these stories to escape a focus on misery and a focus on desperation, and how to hold very, very traumatic, very hard ideas, but not exploit them. And so we wanted the emotional part of this story, the part that holds the trauma, not to live in the stories of the 4 young people in the waiting room, but to live in the stories of the actual actors on stage and the histories that they bring with them, for us to all understand that whether very recent or many generations past, these stories are also part of us.
Noor or Malika, do you want to add?
Yeah, sure. I feel like the monologues are so special and so important because throughout the play, you're looking at us as characters, and you get to know these characters really well, and you understand them, and you're drawn to them because of their humor, or how we just act between each other, amongst each other. And when we come back and show you that, okay, that was a character, but this is me and this is my real life, we have that connection with the audience, and they're able to recognize us as people and take it serious, take it seriously as people, and understand that, oh, real people go through this. This is not just a character. This is not just a movie, or this is not just news. This is real. So that moment of us coming into our monologues really is special and important, because I feel like it acts as a reminder to let the audience know that these are real people who face these issues.
And I also think another thing the monologues do is for people in the audience, it helps them connect with us and with the content of the piece a lot more, because some of the things that each of the four of us say during the monologues are things that I've heard, speaking to people afterward, that really resonate like quite deeply with all kinds of people. And so that's a really nice thing to like help somebody see themselves on stage, even if they haven't up until that point of the monologues. But at that point, after all four monologues are done, I feel like every audience member has seen part of themselves on that stage.
Thank you both. I know even for my young daughters, it really connected them to you all. And I think that it's cut through all different ages, and it's been incredible. We even have a lot of young students watching the screening tonight who got to see it live, and it really is something that we all hold dear. I want to move on to a question that was asked for Nadia. This person, a few people have asked, what is UNHCR doing currently, particularly with COVID-19 in the region?
Thank you. As you have seen, we're here to deliver. So with those very challenging moments in the globe, we are staying to deliver. What we have been doing is from upfront, we have been working very much with the governments to make sure that refugees displaced are included in the national systems, and nobody is discriminated, and they're not left behind. We have been also working with lots of partners on the ground to make sure that the awareness campaigns in terms of prevention measures that need to be taken, all WHO recommendations in terms of those measures have been provided to the communities, to the people of concern to us, in the different languages that we communicate with them. I would not like to just specify here, but just to give an example, we have been able also to provide medical supplies and equipments to certain countries where the needs were high. There have been a lot of community involvement. We have wonderful refugees who have been contributing throughout those outreach. We have refugees who have been helping us to produce soaps. As I mentioned earlier, we take things for granted that you have soap at home, and many did not have. And if part of the preventive measures is to make sure that hygiene is there, then the basics have to be provided. And we have wonderful hands of refugees who have been contributing to provide hygienic kits, from producing nice gloves, masks, making sure that those who don't have it in the community are having it. So it's a combination of delivering and making sure that governments are working with us on that, and we're working closely with them, and also to ensure that the host community is also hand in hand providing that support. During the Ramadan, the month of Ramadan, the region has been tremendous in providing support to every single vulnerable, among them the displaced, the people who have been affected, not necessarily only persons of concern, but the community who have lost their jobs, the elderly who were not able to work anymore, the people who have been isolated, and the resilience has been great. The support has been tremendous in providing food for the people who need it.
Thank you. And we're so thankful that we had this opportunity to kind of come together. I wish we had 2 more hours to kind of talk through every single incredible question and relevant topic. We'll just try and fit in 1 or 2 more. One of them is about the set. And why did you use the boxes? And I've heard the answer to this before, and I love it. So I wanted to make sure that the audience could hear it as well.
Well, in designing the set, we wanted to make something that utilized the materials of migration that you could pick up perhaps in 20 minutes and leave with, as many people have to pick up all of their materials and leave and find a new life. So we wanted to use those materials, the cardboard boxes, the gold blankets, the inflatable rafts. These are all materials that are endemic to the question of what it means to migrate. What does it mean to, if you have to leave your home, what are the 10 things that you need to take with you? One of the exercises that we've done with young people who have migrated more recently is ask them, what did you take with you? Just let's make a little catalog of everything you've taken with you. And what you find is that very soon after they exhaust the concrete things, the paracetamol and the extra pair of pants, they realize how much they are also taking with them of culture, recipes from their grandmothers or songs. And those things too are really important. So we wanted to really build this work from what people are taking with them.
Thank you. One last question, and this can go out to all of the artists, is where we're at now, both with the pandemic and continual global struggles, and thinking of your work, this piece and outside of it in artivism and thinking of art for social impact, wondering what are you doing now, and how do you think that perspective on art is shifting because of what's happening now in the world?
Well, I think all of us, and people can have their own answers, but all of us believe that stories build the world. They build our social and political interaction, they build architecture, and they build policy. And so creating platforms for public exchange and for ideas and stories to move, we believe is central to building the world we want to live in.
For oftentimes when there's political strife, people ask, what should we do now? And what we will be doing now, and I think I speak for Malika and Noor as well, is telling the stories that we've been telling from the beginning. We care about these stories. These stories are us. These stories are the stories that have built our lives, and we think that they are important to keep telling.
Mm-hmm. And I'd like to say that it's another privilege that we have is the internet and the ability to use it to, make our art and share it and do, for example, exactly what we're doing right now. And so at this very moment in time, it's nice to have this platform to continue to do what we do and continue to tell stories as we've been telling them. And like both Kneza and Chris said, I mean, we need these things. And after, I mean, not that the world's going to go back to normal necessarily, but once things are a little bit back to how we are used to, we're going to need a lot of art to document what happened, what happened to us as a planet, and so that's another thing. It's like there's going to be a lot of stuff that's being developed right now that's going to be very important for future generations to see and understand. Like this moment in time of this planet was quite something, especially in this country. A lot of things happened that need to be told.
Right. And so I feel like as creatives, we're going to keep being creative and finding ways to do that. So I think everybody else said pretty much.
Well, thank you everybody so much for taking this time and being us all together in this space and putting this on our map. The screening is going to be up for a whole week. So if you tuned in late, if you want to see it again, if there's people you want to share it with, I want to thank again Christopher and Kneza and the artists and UNHCR and Nadia for being part of this conversation. We want to end with, there is an emoji for World Refugee Day. I think it might have been put in the link so you can hear the story behind it, but we all would like to share that. So I ask everyone on the panel to be part of that. And thanks again so much, everyone. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you. Thank all of you, really.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.